Welcome, everybody. You're listening to AFSO 21's Weekend Wrap-Up Podcast. Here is your host, Kevin Ferrara.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Weekend Wrap-Up here on AFSO 21. I'm your host, Kevin Ferrara, and today we've got two amazing guests. We've got Danielle Cook Kawash. I'm hoping I pronounced her name right. And Mike Salemi from First in Wellness. Now, these two individuals have put together what I consider an amazing program. They've got an individual as well as group programs for firefighter health and wellness, but it spans beyond fire. They support fire, EMS, and police with their programs. Danielle she's the founder of First in Wellness. She's also a dietitian, and Mike is a founder of the Kettlebell Lifestyle. And throughout this podcast, you're going to hear them talk about some amazing things they're doing, some tips and pointers and some suggestions for the fire service, whether it be career or volunteer, in terms of health and wellness. So we hope you enjoy this podcast. So before we get started, as always, let's go ahead and hear from our sponsor, Fire Department Coffee.
Firefighters work long shifts. That's the nature of the job. If your station is like most, coffee is what keeps you going. That's why you should check out Fire Department Coffee. Veteran owned and run by firefighters, Fire Department Coffee offers a wide variety of delicious coffee, including their signature line of spirit-infused coffee, all roasted by hand and delivered right to your door. Even better, 10% of net proceeds from every sale goes to benefit wounded, ill, or injured firefighters and other first responders. And they've got a special deal for the Weekend Wrap-Up listeners. Enter discount code AFSO21, that's AFSO21 at checkout to get 10% off your next order at Fire Department Coffee. FireDepartmentCoffee.com. That's FireDept Coffee.com.
All right, folks, welcome back. And as you heard from our sponsor, Fire Department Coffee, make sure you go ahead and check out some of their spirit-infused coffees. Yes, they are a real company out there. So yeah, just check out their coffees. And I don't have my cup today. I'm sure I'm going to get flack from those guys about it. I left it downstairs, but here, we'll go ahead and we'll do this. We'll simulate Fire Department Coffee on there. So yeah, those that watch the podcast before, they know Jason gave me some flack because I didn't have my cup. So I'm sure he's going to do it again. So as we said at the top of the podcast, we've got some fantastic guests from First in Wellness. We've got Danielle and Mike joining us today. So whoever wants to go first, if you would, just go ahead and give us a brief introduction of who you are.
Go for it, Mike.
So Mike Salemi, I've been really a strength and conditioning coach for the last almost 18 years. Have really worked with from collegiate athletes to professional athletes to a lot of first responders. And really my whole mission, my whole dream through and through is to teach people a longevity approach to training their body and to building their body. So as opposed to just trying to be an athlete or trying to do a challenge, let's say, and be super strong for a month or 2 months, it's really about building longevity and resiliency. So that's everything that I do is all centered around that.
Great.
Right. Well, thanks for having us on. We're really excited to be on. And my name is Danielle Cook Kawash. And I am a dietitian by training. I worked in hospitals. I've worked in diabetes centers. I've worked in infusion centers, specializing in TPN and tube feedings. And then I eventually, through my own personal health challenges, made my way into what's called functional medicine. And basically that is a root cause approach to medicine. And so versus a reactionary approach where you have a symptom, you get a drug for that symptom, we try to figure out what the root cause of those symptoms are and hopefully alleviate some of the symptoms, but also go in and fix the actual problem for what's causing the symptoms. And so I have worked in a couple different clinics specializing in running or supporting their functional medicine programs. And the last department or clinic that I worked in, we were approached by a couple different fire departments to do some health and wellness programs for them. And so that's how I started working with first responders. When I started working with, I guess it would be the second department, we were doing a unit on cancer risk reduction. And I was in charge of doing the research and writing up and preparing that part of the program. And when I started looking at the data, and it was pretty striking to me, and it just kind of lit a fire under me that I wanted to help to support these men and women that were going out and sacrificing their own health and wellness for the safety and wellness of our communities. And so, and I felt really strongly about that because, I mentioned I had lost my health back in my early 30s, and I really took my health for granted before then and thought I was pretty bulletproof. And after I lost it, it made me realize, wow, this is like the most important thing in the world. It really, it makes a difference for everything else in my life if I don't have my health. And so it's really important to me to help others protect their health and wellness. And so that's how I got started doing what I'm doing.
Great. Well, we in the fire service, I appreciate what you're both, are doing for, yourselves and really emergency responders, here in the United States, and I'm sure across the globe, because, a lot of my audience members, they're primarily here in the United States, but I've got, I'm starting to get quite a following over in Europe. So, and I'm really starting to hear more and more emphasis on, the firefighter health and wellness programs out there. When I first started in the volunteer service back in 1988, I was just 16 at the time. And health and wellness really wasn't, something that we heard of a lot, especially in the fire service. Maybe some of the career departments, some folks were working out and everything, but it was nothing near what it is today. And, Danielle, as you said, the data is out there. Data doesn't lie. I mean, you can manipulate it, this and that, but once you start pulling that data, then that really puts a perspective on things. And, I think, again, I thank you guys for doing what you're doing, putting, information together, and having, these support services, if you will, out there for, folks they can look at and, make informed decisions and, choose to go with or not go with you, but, at the very least, it's opening their eyes saying, hey, we really need to focus on ourselves. Because at the end of the day, if we're not healthy, we can't respond to an emergency. And ultimately, that's a domino effect, So, Danielle, you sort of talked a little bit about it. First question up is, I always ask, what led each of you to create or be involved with firefighter safety, and first in wellness. So, Danielle, I think we heard, a little bit of how you came to be with this, but Mike, can you sort of, piggyback on what Danielle said and let the audience know how you got involved in all this?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I didn't share in the beginning, but I've been a competitive athlete my whole life. So was a competitive gymnast, competed in powerlifting for 10 years, Olympic weightlifting in college, 10 years of kettlebell sport. And basically when I first started off when I was 14, the powerlifting team that I was a part of, it was a basement powerlifting club. Like we had keys to get in. Took me over a year to basically earn my key. And I was like, when I was 14, I was the loader, so we had a whole group of 8 to 10 guys in rotation. So I was always the grunt who was loading weights. And the whole gym was basically made up of police officers, firefighters, and garbage men. And so for 10 years, that was really my whole, let's just say like a lot of my maturity. That was like my church, let's say. And so a lot of the guys I would hang out with, train with, a lot of them were firefighters. And so was able to do some ride-alongs. And then when I'd had the opportunity to do a big program with Santa Clara with Danielle as well for 6 months working with firefighters a few years ago, I was like, man, this is awesome. This feels the feeling was like it brings me back, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to contribute to them, which where a lot of my roots were. So once I started working with them, I was like, this is awesome. Like, especially the type of athletes, at least in my mind, that you guys and gals need to be are some of the most functional athletes in the world. Like when you talk about the amount of stress, the lack of sleep, the type of odd objects like from saws and all that sort of stuff, the positions you put yourself in. I was like, when I did the ride-alongs, I done a few of them, I was like, this is no joke. I just had a huge amount of respect. And so it's just a pleasure and an honor to be able to do my part to support. So it started when I was 14, but it's just been evolving over the years.
Nice. Appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Mike, I was just thinking about that too, and just even the limited vision and the oxygen deprivation, or it's not unlimited oxygen, right? So that's one of the things we focus on a lot in our program that we can talk about later on. But yeah, just unbelievable. But what you men and women have to be able to do under some pretty crazy environments, and the hot temperatures. And so I'd love to get more into that later on today if we can, and Mike can talk a little bit about our programs to hopefully help to better prepare firefighters for that.
Absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned athletes, Mike, because there's a thread on Facebook in one of the firefighter groups I belong to, Air Force firefighters, and it's funny because that exact topic come up is like, should we start calling ourselves, it was something, and then athletes, should firefighters start calling themselves athletes? And I sat here thinking about it today, and I'm like, well, should we, or anything like that? And then, I mean, Mike, you hit it out of the park. I mean, you gave us a perfect reason, how firefighters really are athletes. It's funny, you look at wrestlers and they're athletes, the WWE wrestlers and everything, they consider themselves athletes and everything. But I don't think a lot of us really look at firefighters as being athletes, if you will. But once you start putting all those pieces of the puzzle together that we that really make us who we are, then yeah, we truly are athletes. And there's different components that we have to train for and prepare ourselves for and maintain in order to be competitive, if you will. I don't think we're competing against ourselves. I think we're competing against the environment that we operate in. And we don't want the environment to overtake us. We have to train and build up I guess that resilience. We're going to talk about resilience later on. Stamina, oxygen, levels, everything like that, and be as best as we can be. So again, I appreciate you too, being on the podcast today, and we're gonna try to talk about a lot of stuff. We're gonna pack a lot of stuff into this podcast, folks. So next up, I've got, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so fascinating to hear what you shared there, and when you think about firefighters, you guys are operating all day, whether it's in a training environment or in a real life situation, to accomplish a task. You have a task that you have to do, whether it's an individual task or as a team oftentimes. And so when you think about, you have a task, you have a goal, you have an objective. And a lot of times that objective, most all the time, it's going to change just at whatever the call is, you need to be ready for it. So the fact that you need to have a level of readiness to go at any moment of time, for me, that in and of itself is very athletic, the ability to drop at the drop of a hat and run. Think about years ago, when we were hunter and gatherers, there was no time to warm up. If there was an animal outside, or there was a situation, or there was a battle or something, you legit needed to be able to hop out of bed. I don't even know, grab your spear and let's go. But with that as well, when you think about too, it's a fascinating topic too, what is an athlete? And when I'm whether it's my own training, if I'm training someone, whatever, I'm basically looking at, depending how you look at it, about 7 factors that I'm really looking at from athleticism. So I'm looking at strength, power, speed, flexibility, coordination, agility, endurance, and I think I got most all of them. So when you look at firefighting and you take those 7, let's just say abilities, you guys need to have a wrestler, honestly, is and that is why I love working with wrestlers as well, because they need to have high levels of all those. And so you need to have, sometimes some proportion might be more or less, but I would absolutely, and I know it's a cultural shift, right? It's definitely, there's a cultural component of firefighters maybe not seeing themselves as athletes, but that's the type of mindset that needs to happen in order to really create that longevity and that resilience. Because then otherwise it's then why would I train? Why, if I can just get by, it's no. we want you to get there, but also get there healthy and excited and feeling good and feeling great in your body and not feel like super broken down, for example.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep. Danielle, anything to add on that, or
I mean, I was just
not?
thinking.
Not to put you on the spot, but
Yeah, I mean, I go back to this saying that we always say all the time. I mean, you shouldn't, as a first responder, you shouldn't have to sacrifice your own health and wellness and sacrifice your body for the community. And, you should have a toolkit of things that you can use to not only be able to perform and perform safely and be that person on your crew that everyone can depend on, so you're not letting anyone down, that you know that you have the abilities to be able to perform when you need to in that critical moment. And that might be 1% of your career, if it ever happens, but you're ready for that 1%. And then the other thing is, we want people to be able to continue to be doing this throughout their careers and not looking on their watch for the last 10 years of their career. Like, when am I going to be able to retire? Like, we want you to be reared up, ready to go, excited, loving your career, not burnt out, hating what I don't think I've ever heard a firefighter say they hate what they do. I've always heard them say, I love my job, I'd never make a different choice. But I also, on the other hand, have heard firefighters tell me, well, I get to retire in 10 years. And so we want people to feel good and end their career with the excitement that they began at. And then have this kick-ass retirement afterwards, because their bodies aren't broken down. They can do all those things that they wish they could do more of when they had more time. And now they've got ample time, because, that's maybe a small reason, maybe larger for some people, but why they get into a career like as a firefighter, that, typically the retirement's a bit younger than other careers. And so retirement is, this wide open palette of what they can do, what they can fill all their passions with. And if your body's broken down, then, you're limited of what you can fill that palette with. So.
Yep, absolutely. So, well, let's skip around here a little bit. So I think most of my audience members can probably relate to this and agree to it. When it comes to physical fitness, health and wellness, we see a lot of programs within the career departments. We see a lot of, emphasis on career and discussion about career, but then, you both talk about going from 0 to 60, or 0 to 100, almost, immediately when that pager activates, those tones drop, especially in the volunteer fire service. Because here in Pennsylvania, about 90+% of the fire service organizations in Pennsylvania are volunteer. It's a dwindling career, I guess, if you will. At one point, Pennsylvania had over 300,000+ volunteer firefighters. We're down to about 30,000 now. And unfortunately, those numbers are dropping, and it's because of more emphasis on training, education. And, I just noticed there's some legislation that's being presented here in Pennsylvania that says for some of your health and wellness, like your physical exams and everything, they'll be reimbursed, but there's some requirements in there. Response, number of responses and a few other things. So what do you guys have to say for the volunteer fire service? Because a lot of folks, they have their, a career outside of firefighting. They may, they're working 9 to 5, 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts, depending on, what's going on. And, the area I'm in, there's a lot of manufacturing, industrial areas. So, they're working some, stressful jobs already. And then when they come home, they're trying to relax, and all of a sudden that pager activates and boom, there's an accident, a medical or a fire call. So, they're on this roller coaster, so what do you have to say about, those individuals in terms of a health and wellness program, or, being aware of their own personal health and wellness?
Yeah, I think Danielle and I both, like, one of the things we see super eye to eye on is like minimum effective dose, let's just say. And I think everyone's going to be coming in with a different amount of, stress level, family stuff, work stuff, relationship stuff. Like, we're all human beings. And I think one of the big I don't even know, maybe from like the outside misconception is like, yes, firefighters are our heroes. And at the same time, like we can't forget that they're human too. And so as human beings, like we all are going to be dealing with stress. And so when it comes to like health and wellness, depending on what someone's stress level is, depending on how much time they can allot to training, like they always say, what's the best exercise? It's the one that you're willing to do regularly. And so if you're really only going to work out, and workout can mean a bunch of different things, but once every 2 weeks, I would way rather have someone legitimately just go for a walk each day for 20 minutes, just close their mouth, nasal breathe, start building up that, which is also going to be a de-stressing exercise. So all that to say, it can be as small as it needs to be, and starting off like with anything. If I'm teaching someone the clean and jerk, let's say with a barbell or a kettlebell, I'm not going to start them there. First, we're going to work on the deadlift. We're going to chunk that movement down. Once they can do that and they feel confident and it's not so much input to take in, then we progress to the next thing. So bite-sized chunk, like prioritizing for that individual, that fitness and health and wellness doesn't have to be this complete shift in their life. Like literally Danielle is, and she'll, I'm sure, share about this, but her nutritional recommendations, my fitness stuff is like just the focus on breathing, and even just like one stretch a day. If that's what you want to do, if you were in pain or you had some restriction, just do that every day, and just doing it consistently, like with everything else in life, it will absolutely pay dividends. So it doesn't have to be this big mountain you have to climb.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to say thank you to all the volunteer firefighters out there. So a massive gift to our communities and just humankind. So thank you. And the next thing I would wholeheartedly agree with Mike, and we've had a lot of conversations about this, and this is a lot of why we created First in Wellness, because we wanted to, and we just keep like paring down and simplifying. We're actually going through another round of our resilience program and simplifying it even more, adding more support, a little bit more, hope this doesn't sound bad, but a little bit more hand holding, and just because we know it's hard. I mean, the thing, like the way our society is made up, if you just even look at the food system and advertisements, and it's stacked against us being healthy. And, there are more and more ways that we don't have to move. And so there are more and more things out there that are just screwing up our sleep. I mean, we could talk about light, and we can talk a bit about sleep, but yeah. And so Mike and I are always trying to find what are the lowest hanging, fruits in these different, kind of what we think of them like, these different pillars that are of health that are holding you up and supporting you. And what are the lowest hanging fruits there? And, Mike mentioned a couple things with fitness, and, if we look at the other pillars, we think about, Mike and I, and you could argue there are more than 7 or less than 7, but let's just say there are 7. If we look at sleep, we look at stress modulation, we look at, what am I on 3 now? We look at movement, we look at community, we look at breathing, and we look at gut health. That seems like a lot. We can probably pare it down to fewer, but if we want to be really robust and look at those 7, in each of those areas, there's always low hanging fruit. And the other thing is, they're like levers. If you start working on improving one of those pillars, it's going to affect all the other ones. It's going to improve your health overall. It's so, for example, in nutrition, probably the lowest hanging fruit, and I'm not saying this is easy, but the thing that's going to have the most impact, the most profound impact on your health, is going to be reducing added sugars. And so if you start reducing how much added sugar, and if you start looking at food labels, if you look at a food label, there's total sugars and then added sugars. If you start looking at how much added sugar is in, typical things that most Americans are eating, breakfast cereals, yogurt, coffee creamers, tomato sauce, ketchup, if you start looking at some of these things and start adding up how much added sugars you're eating in a day, it's kind of eye-opening.
Yeah.
And then you can just start kind of making some different choices and start reducing the added sugar. And we talk a lot about sugar in our program because it's just so impactful. It's going to influence how much pain you're in, and I would say a lot of firefighters, I'm going to venture to say a lot of firefighters have injuries and they're in discomfort or pain, right? And so this is going to help with that. It's going to help with sleep. It's going to help with your energy levels. It's going to help with your moods. When you eat sugar, it causes inflammation. It causes inflammation in your body, but also in your brain. And an inflamed brain is a depressed brain. And so it's going to impact a lot of things. I mean, you can even see your relationships because you're going to be in a better mood. You're not going to be as inflammatory. And so it's also, if you reduce sugar, that's going to help. I mentioned your sleep. It's going to lower stress because when you eat a bunch of sugar, it increases cortisol levels, which is going to add to the already elevated cortisol levels if you're sleep deprived, if you're under a lot of stress, like if you have a stressful job, a stressful marriage, if you live in this world. And so it's going to affect that. It's going to affect your gut health. It's going to affect, I don't know how much it's going to affect your breathing, but your breathing is going to affect a whole bunch of other things. But what I'm saying is if you start looking at these different areas and we talk about just working on these kind of lowest hanging fruit, but these really impactful things, and just picking one of those things to work on, or maybe it's even bringing awareness to it or bringing some attention to it. And that's the start of making a change. Then you're going to start to shift in the spectrum of health. Maybe you're down here, you're not doing so great, and you start moving towards this, really healthy organism. And so we want to just take these baby steps. These big, huge leaps, they usually don't work. I mean, that's why crash diets don't work, because usually it's someone doing something incredibly different from what they're usually doing. And humans love habit. We love habit. And we can do things like our sleep hygiene and what we're doing that hour before bed and make really good habits, or we can have really crappy habits and just demolish our sleep. So it's all habits, and it's changing those habits. And because we don't like change, it's making these tiny little incremental changes, which does a lot of things. One, you're starting to shift towards that healthier pattern. But the other thing is, when they're tiny little changes, is you start to build confidence. Because who's been on a crash diet? They change their whole eating. They do it for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, whatever. They get sick of it. They go back to what they were eating before. They gain all that weight back, usually more. And then they've just corroded their confidence. And so the likelihood that they're going to be really excited about trying another change in their nutrition is less likely. So,
Yeah.
That's a long answer.
No, it's all good information. All good. So a couple of things, I jotted down here, that one, you both had said, feel confident, I've been in those positions to where, I've done the crash diets. I've done the military, the 3-day diets. It's tough. It's tough. And you're absolutely right. You sort of get used to it and you're like, yeah, I got this. But then you've got those little teasers that are, in your fridge or, in your kitchen. And then all of a sudden you start finding yourself migrating back to those and, you're putting the weight back on, you're doubling the weight. And I'm like, oh God, how important is it? You guys also mentioned community, how important is it, internally, whether you're a volunteer or career department, that community to support the confidence level of those that are, I don't want to say struggling to get back on track with health and, wellness, but, encouraging each other, because really, you both know firefighting is a team, you can't do it by yourself. So how important is it to have that team environment, whether it's one person going through, a health and wellness program or some issues, or the entire organization?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think one of the things that comes up is exactly what you said. Like when in terms of a team environment, like when I hung out with a lot of firefighters, like I always ask them, like, what got you into firefighting? And this might not be the number one thing, but I've heard this quite a bit, at least in the list, is they're like, it reminds me of high school football, like the same type of camaraderie, that same type of team, that accountability, that energy. Like there's an energy, like as human beings, we are collective creatures. We are creatures of community. And we need that just as much, honestly, as we need the food that we eat, the water that we drink, our exercise program. Like looking at community as an essential nutrient in the body for our own mental well-being, our spiritual well-being, our emotional well-being. And I've seen this really, really, really play out. I do now I've gotten more into men's work the last few years. So teaching personal development for men's and leading retreats. And honestly, like while there's so many cool things that we do in these retreats and these men's work events, you know, honestly, if we just got a group of like-minded people with the same intention to come together, it would be so healing and so growth promoting. So literally just getting a group of people with a common goal, a common objective, there truly to support one another, that's the magic right there. And that's where I think is so important for any, especially a fitness program, any change of lifestyle habits. It's huge.
Yeah, that I would agree with everything you're saying, Mike. And I think one thing I would say is, within a department, within a unit, it can't be punitive. It can't be, a lot of what we've heard, what people have told us is, you come in, you join you join the department, and typically you're in good shape and you're younger, and if you start to gain a little bit a little bit of weight or get a little bit deconditioned, you can kind of go back to what you were doing 5 years before and get back there. As the years tick on, that starts not to work as well. And maybe can't get fit as well, or then you injure yourself trying to do what you used to do. So that, the training needs to be appropriate for the time and the place. And so, like we were saying before, starting at the base, building a foundation is really important. But the other thing is, like you mentioned, it's a family. It's the crew is a family, and they have family meals together. And that's a great opportunity to be united in the same goal of supporting one another's health and wellness, and just making a decision as a crew. Okay, instead of, having, a bunch of ice cream and cookies, and we're going to have some healthier options in here. We're going to have fruit. Maybe we're going to have a couple options like, there's so many, lower sugar options out there now, that, and I'm happy to provide a list to your viewers, but yeah, there are a lot of different options out there. Or even like, we're going to try to eat a healthier breakfast instead of having, donuts, bagels, and, breakfast cereals. We're going to do things like, chia seed pudding or porridge, or we're going to make some higher protein pancakes or whatever. I mean, there are a million options out there, have healthier snacks in the station, but they can make these decisions as a community and support one another. And then Mike can speak more to fitness than I can, but yeah, I mean, if you have someone in your crew, another member that's deconditioned, and it's intimidating to go work with someone that, is doing CrossFit 5 days a week and is totally yoked and a total fire breather, then, teaching them one basic movement or going for a walk with them, or instead of trying to put them through your routine so they can't like get off the toilet for 3 days. So, that kind of thing. And I'm trying to meet, and I guess the message I'm trying to get at is meeting people where they're at, and then trying to find some commonality and support them there.
So, something that, I observed, during my time in the military, and even in other, organizations, fire service organizations, is I going sort of piggybacking on community is, the attitude within the organization. And, when I say attitude, I've seen a lot, and I've heard a lot from other firefighters. They're like, yeah, we're trying to implement this new health and wellness program, but leadership isn't really on board. The chiefs set in their old ways. They don't want to participate, and they find it hard to really, I guess, stimulate the attitudes of everybody else, because they see leadership not wanting to get involved. So they're like, well, if my leadership doesn't get involved, why do I have to do this? And then, then there's that, oh, it's forced fitness. They're forcing it down our throat. We got to do this. But at the same time, those, in leadership positions, role models really aren't very well involved. What if anything do you have to say about, those that are in leadership positions, the role models that really can set the pace, the standard for, everybody within their organization?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No. I was going to hand it over to you.
Oh, I was going to say, we have heard that before, definitely. And we've even had that experience. One of our big learning things that we've gone through is complexity and time. So a station or a department could have the money, they could have it in their budget, they could have the interest to implement a health and wellness program. But when you sit down and really look at the training schedule and how much time they're going to set aside, what we've learned is you have to go in again with these baby steps. It might not be this full program, like this really robust program. But again, if we really, pare it back and we really are, real with ourselves, like we were saying to you, you can make these small changes and have pretty profound impacts. And so a program that maybe isn't as robust that is in there, it's better than no program at all. And so, and I do think, leadership, one of the things that we try to bring awareness to is you're going to save a ton of money by bringing in a health and wellness program, not just in injuries, not just in people being out on disability or less rates of cardiac events or cancer, but also just attrition. It costs a lot of money to train a new firefighter. And so if your members aren't happy, if your members are burnt out, if they're not healthy, which is going to affect their mental and psychological health, that's going to affect attrition and that's going to impact your budget. And so I think that's a really important thing. And as far as leadership being a role model, hopefully you have good leaders, but we all know that that's not always true. And but I feel like that's something that if you don't have a leader, maybe your chief, but maybe your captain is really into fitness, then you and your crew, you work on stuff together as a team. And so you impact and you make a difference in what you can. And the other thing is that can trickle up. So if your crew all of a sudden is making some changes and working on their health and wellness and, whatever different one of those 7 pillars you're supporting, then other people in the other members in your department are going to see that. And they're going to go, hey, what are you guys doing over there? And then they're going to want to start doing that. And then now you have another crew doing it. And that starts to trickle up and people start to notice. And if that chief or whoever it is in command is not willing to shift, then majority can speak, put someone else in charge. So that kind of thing.
Okay, great. Mike, anything?
Yeah, I would just echo what Danielle said. And I do think like I've run into this a lot. Like the one guy I grew up with since I was 14, he's a captain of San Mateo Fire. And I'll train, I just trained him and his kids just recently. And we've gone out to coffee a bunch in the recent years. And he's the head of their fitness, whatever board or whatever the fitness side of things. And he's like, the higher ups, like all they want to do is order ellipticals and stuff like, or just more cardio equipment. And it's like, it's a challenge to get like I know like how great sandbags are and kettlebells are, like, that's what we should be doing. So I can totally see the reality as it can be, it can totally be challenging, but I think there's an education piece, like the things that Danielle was saying, the saving money, the injury prevention, like all those sort of things are real things. And then also too, like, I love what Danielle said, like sometimes like even with my, not to too much about my family, but even like with my own parents, like I've been doing this stuff since I was 14 years old. I've been like meal prepping and just being a maniac about this stuff. And literally they just started working. Like it's some of the most frustrating things, the people I love the most and the people I'm the tightest to, my leaders, like sometimes are the hardest people to change. But 20 years later, just seeing me and seeing how happy I am. And I'm like, then when they're ready, they come along. So it's one of the things, like one of the things I admire most about the fire service is whatever it is, it's like the mentality or the slogan I've seen is like, we make it work. Like we'll make it work. And so sometimes there's got to be the leadership from, like Danielle was saying, there's got to be the leadership within the crew to model it. And once it's modeled and that people can see what's possible, then people get more inspired. And that's also where the community aspect comes in, because like when one of the first programs I was working on with firefighters, they used to call it, there was individual people of multiple different crews that were doing the fitness thing. And they were called the super soldiers. And like, sometimes that can be intimidating, and I get it. Like, obviously, like sometimes one of the reasons why me and my family's Italian, my mom and dad's from Sicily. I grew up on pasta. And so when I told them I wasn't going to eat pasta because I'm training, literally it was like blasphemy. Like it was huge.
Oh yeah, you were out of the family. Yeah.
Like literally 3 times a day. My grandparents don't speak English. They're like, I just saw my grandmother this weekend and she hasn't seen me in a few years. She doesn't speak English. And she goes, the first words I had to translate for my girlfriend, she goes, "Oh, Michael," in Italian. She goes, "You look so sick. You look so sick. Are you eating? You're so skinny." The first word. And I'm translating to my partner and I'm just like, oh my God, it's my grandma. But all that to say is, sometimes it's intimidating because it's different and it challenges, like it shows you the mirror of maybe things that you want to do but aren't ready to. But also, and sometimes it can be inspiring. And when we use that true community, that true brotherhood and sisterhood of inviting people in, not commanding them to join, but inviting them to join and modeling it, I think it works both ways, from a leadership down and also from the other way up, as Danielle was saying.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I agree. And yeah, I'm Italian as well. So I can relate to, the oh, you look sick and everything. Well, I'm sure you're well aware, January is Firefighter Cancer Awareness Month. For those listening, the Firefighter Cancer Support Network, somebody, an organization, we here at AFSO 21, we fully support, we're behind them. They've recently reported, when you go to their website, and we're going to have links, on the podcast description to, everything we're talking about today. Cancer, they're saying, in 2016, cancer caused 70% of line of duty deaths, among career firefighters. Unfortunately, the stats aren't in there really for volunteer firefighters, but I can't help but think, those percentages are probably, significantly high among, volunteer firefighters, as well. So, when we look at, recognizing cancer as a line of duty death, again, it's often overlooked, because it's not immediate. It's not like, the other line of duty deaths, like a stress related or, a burn or, a collapse or anything like that. Sometimes it takes, 20, 30, 50 years, before things, pop up. And that's something I've been, talking to a lot of firefighters about. Just because you're exposed today doesn't mean, you're safe. It may, show up later on down the road. So how do you guys, in First In Wellness, deal with that or talk about that, among firefighters? How does cancer awareness tie into what, you guys offer?
I think, everything we're talking about right now is going to support your body. I mean, the reality is that everybody has cancer cells. We want your immune system to be able to recognize them and to have the ability to kill them. And so, everything we're talking about with those 7 pillars we mentioned is all going to be supportive of helping your body to be able to do that. The reality is firefighters, and this depends on where you work, what kind of calls you get, your exposure is higher than, Mike and I. And so, hopefully that's improving. But again, especially in the volunteer department, and Kevin, this way better than I do, but you don't always have the right gear, or you have the older gear. You don't have all the protective stuff you need. Maybe you don't have washers and dryers there to all these different things to help with decreasing your exposure. But within your own life, you can help to, again, strengthen your immune system and increase your body's ability to detoxify. Our bodies are really good at detoxifying. In fact, our bodies are super good at healing themselves. We just have to get out of the way and give them the right tools. And so, little things like we talked about, like reducing sugar. I mean, sugar is basically like lighter fluid for cancer cells. Like it helps cancer cells, not only it feeds them, it's fuel, but it also helps them to divide. It helps them increase their blood supply. So it helps to make these cancer cells start to grow into tumors and then to grow and to spread. And so just reducing sugar, those added sugars, and what I refer to as added sugars are things that you're adding to a natural food to increase the amount of sugar. So, fruit, that's all packaged in all these nutrients that are actually going to help your body to combat cancer. And so it's in fiber, it's had a slower release. What I'm talking about is like sugar that's added to yogurt and things like that. But if you start reducing sugar, that's going to have a massive impact. The other thing is sleep. I mean, sleep deprivation is part of the job, and we can't change that. I mean, yeah, I would love to see some shifts in the fire service, even like a later shift change in the morning, so they can, people that are commuting a long way can get a little bit more sleep before their shift. But things within the stations that can be changed to help to improve sleep hygiene. But we can't change that overnight, right? But there's stuff you can do. And so, sleep deprivation, we know shift work is, the World Health Organization has deemed it a carcinogen. So we know that sleep deprivation contributes to that growth of cancer. And so then we need to focus on, like, what are you doing on your off days? Let's say you're on a whatever kind of shift schedule you're at, 24, 48, 48, 96, maybe you're a volunteer firefighter and it's all over the map. But those off days are critical for catching up on that sleep and improving your sleep quality. You might not be able to get the hours you can get that you want to get. Maybe you've got family, maybe, and then, of course, on the job, but you can improve that sleep quality. And so we have a whole kind of like reboot schedule that we talk about, on those days off. Like, what do those days look like? So you're rebooting your system, and so that you're supporting your body. Because we know that sleep deprivation is going to impact your immune system. Your immune system's going to be weakened when you're not sleeping, when you're really stressed. So there are all these different ways that you can support your body, that you can do on your own. And again, it doesn't have to be a revamp of everything you're doing and some overwhelming thing. You just start somewhere, some small step. And those are things that we talk about in our programs, in our resilience programs. And these are things they're going to be protective, like even adding some colorful fruits and vegetables. They have what are called phytonutrients. Those are what make the colors up on the fruits and vegetables. And those are little cancer killers. And so those are things that are strengthening your immune system. So even adding some color on your plate, you're protecting yourself. They're going to help your body detoxify from those nasty chemicals that you're exposed to, that Mike and I are exposed to in every day, just living in this world. So,
yeah. Yep. Mike, anything?
No, I mean, I think Danielle rocked that one. Yeah, I'm just like observing, some of the changes over the years of like in the fire stations, and like some of them are having saunas now, and it's just a cool thing to see. But anything for, that can improve detoxification, sweating being a big one. So like whether someone's in the sauna or like going for something to get start going through your pores, and then just cleaning that stuff off really clean afterwards, showering right after. So no, I wouldn't add anything else, but just it's been cool to see kind of the evolution from the washer and dryers to saunas to promoting this stuff. So anything that will improve detoxification, training and exercise and fitness being one of them, would be a great addition to anyone, whether it's during a work day and or on an off day, for sure.
Cool.
Can I inject a little comment there? I know I already spoke a whole bunch.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
In regard to, I just want to make just two notes on that, because that's a really good point, Mike, is supporting detoxification. With sauna use, I do want to just specify, you don't want to go out on a call, get exposed to stuff, and then get in your sauna, because you're opening up your pores, and now you're going to absorb some of that stuff. So a sauna, an appropriate time would be maybe the next day, after you're exposed, but not right after. And so, one of the best things you can do is get in a shower right after, use, wipes, things like that. I mean, you guys talk about, you're experts at this. But the other thing is, like what Mike mentioned, is detoxification. And, you have your different routes. You have sweating, you have urination, you have your breath, and then you also have your pooping, which is like, I don't get invited back to dinner sometimes because I'm a dietitian and I love talking about pooping. But it's so important. So if you're not pooping every day, you're missing out on a major route of getting rid of these nasties in your body. So if you want to talk about pooping, you can call me and we can talk. So
oh, all right, folks, you heard it here first. This is a first on the podcast. We've got a contact. If you want to talk about your poop, Danielle is your go-to person. So that's awesome.
And your phone's going to be blowing up.
I can put my home phone or my cell phone right across the screen.
Oh my gosh. All right. The $1 million question. Now, we've been talking, health and wellness here. We've been talking about, what you guys do. There's probably a gazillion different folks out there, companies that are doing the health and wellness. Each of them is claiming to be the best out there. What separates First in Wellness from the rest of the group out there when it comes to, and this is your chance to really sell it, when it comes, and I'm putting you on the spot now, when it comes to, fire, EMS, police, emergency services, why should at least my audience members, I approached you guys at the 4th annual Firefighter Health and Wellness Conference in exotic Beaver Creek, Ohio.
With the shirt.
Yes, I nailed it. I nailed it, folks. I'll put a picture up later for those that have not seen it. But seriously though, I was impressed, with the elevator pitch that you guys did out there, and during the break and everything like that, and we've been in contact ever since then. So for the audience members listening, why should they be looking at first in wellness, for a structured, a go-to program? And go.
I'll keep this quick. Elevator pitchy. But I think, from everything we've talked about, and you've heard, we believe in these baby step things. And we come in from this coaching perspective. But, I think the biggest thing to remember is, we don't expect you to change your entire life. And our program hopefully isn't going to bore you to death, and it's going to keep you interested, and it's going to be easy to follow. And so with all that, you can make some pretty profound changes in your health and wellness. The other thing is, it's a program that is designed with structure to kind of lead you along. It's not a total choose your own adventure program, but it is going to have some flexibility in depending on what your needs are, what your interests are, where you're coming into the program, and where you want to get to. So what are your goals? And that's whether you do our program or another program, because there are a lot of great programs out there, and maybe you're already doing one of them, is, when you're trying to make a change, whether it's with your fitness, with your nutrition, with your sleep, is always step back and ask yourself, why am I doing this? And I think that's the most important question you can ask yourself. And then ask yourself why about 4 or 5 more times. Like, okay, well, why is that important? Well, why is that important? And when you really dig down and you figure out what that internal motivation is, not, I want to look thinner, I want to look better in these pants, I want to, but why? Why do you want to look thinner in those pants? And so when you really dig down and get that why, then you're going to most likely follow through with whatever that goal is or wherever you're trying to get to, and then take that in baby steps. So if it's to lose a certain amount of weight, which I would ask you to ask why about 5 times to that question. You want to cut that goal up wherever your end line is, like make a tiny baby step, one tiny little change. And so that's what we encourage in our program, is small changes that are going to make big differences.
Yeah, and to build off on that, like, in addition to what Danielle said, like, I mean, Danielle and I have been working together now, I think 3+ years, like very closely. And like, it's one of those things where the comprehensive nature of the program, like truly, and I know it's hard because someone hasn't seen the program, but hit us up anytime. We can hop on a call, give you a tour so you can actually see the nuts and bolts, so it makes more sense what I'm about to share. It's like, this has been my whole life. Like since I was 14, I eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff. Like this is all I do. This is all I read. This is all I want to do. And the same thing for Danielle. And so like, to have both of us, I've got so much just respect for what Danielle brings to the table. And that's why, like, for me, fitness without considering sleep and nutrition and stress, like, it's not a fitness program. And the same thing with Danielle, like the nutrition and the wellness stuff, but without a quality, solid movement program is missing a huge part of the pie. So for me, it's the comprehensive nature of it, and the fact that we are literally like so passionate about this stuff that I want to bring that into stations, and I really want to create change from the inside out. And like, that's the heart and soul of the program, is what me and Danielle, like, our intentions for it. Because for me, the intention of any creation is the most important thing. The intention, and then the follow through, of course. But like, the intention was truly to create change from the inside out. So any opportunity that we can do that, and if someone, if there's another program that resonates you, great. Like at the end of the day, we want to see this population, your population, just getting healthier. And so for us, that's a win. And if what we said, or the style that we speak, or what we have resonates with you, then just hit us up. We would love to help. But at the end of the day, if you're taking a step in the right direction, we're rooting for you. And I say that from the bottom of my heart, and I mean that. So yeah.
And see, that's something, I can respect and appreciate, and I'm sure, a lot of my audience members can, is that, you openly have stated, hey, our program or your program may not be the best for, certain individuals, but, you encourage them to find that program, that thing that works for them. And so many times I've heard, your competitors, other organizations, it's like, nope, we are the only ones out there. You have to go with us. And they don't encourage, back to that community, that teamwork. You guys offer, a lot of great things, but then there's some folks over here that offer some great things. And maybe they don't, do everything that you guys do, but, maybe a little portion, here and there. And I think, really what I'm saying is that, it's that you encourage, you hit it out of the park, both of you, by saying the baby steps, be active, you don't have to go, all out, Olympic athlete, full train, but as long as you're doing something, those baby steps, that's what I always say is, take the baby steps, kickstart that, that motivation, and then you'll get to that pinnacle where, your goal, your end goal. But, you can't just, flip a light switch and go from 0 to there overnight. So, I've looked at your guys' program, the 90-day individual program. It's a fantastic program. There's a lot of useful, information in there. The big thing, it's easy to use. Firefighters, we love easy. If there's a lot of, if you bust out the instructions and it's got like 15-20 different languages and it's super small print, we're like, no, move on, let's find something else. But that's just the reality. It's we like things, simplified. And, personally, I think what you guys are offering, it is simplified, but at the same time, it's jam packed full of a lot of useful information. So I know you guys wanted to talk about things. This is your chance. We've been going back and forth here. I want you to really, talk about your services, talk about your company, let the audience members, things that we haven't talked about, showcase. You're the guests on the podcast, so you're here for a reason. So have at it. Sell, talk about it. Go beyond that elevator pitch. It's as they say, sell me this pen. Well, sell me your company. Let's highlight your company.
Well, thank you so much. I super on behalf of both Danielle and I, super appreciate just you and for doing what you're doing in this podcast. Yeah, this is how the best information in my mind gets out today, is through passionate people doing podcasts like this with community. So thank you. And I think, we definitely talked a good deal about the program, and I'll let Danielle add anything to that. But I think the one thing that we're super stoked about right now in this moment is we've completely revamped the fitness program. It is so rad. There's a huge focus on breathing and breath work throughout. So reducing breathlessness both via at rest, during exercise, so you can conserve your oxygen much better. I've been shocked at my own training, and that with all the clients, first responders, athletes, general pop, at just how the importance and the influence breathing's had. So that's a big component of the program. There's a lot of really cool sandbag training and kettlebell training as well. Simple movements, but very powerful movements. And the way that we're leading into that launch, which is happening literally in, I think it's about a week, is on the 18th, we're doing a challenge on breath work and on breathing. And so that will be a time where I'm going to teach people how to do a breath assessment to see, basically we're testing your level of breathlessness, which has influence on so many aspects of health. And then I'm going to take people through a workout where we're going to challenge you, very, very simple exercise, mini workout, where I'm going to challenge your breathlessness, but then I'm going to teach a super effective way how to recover after a bout of heavy work. So whether that's something in the gym, or it was in the training environment, or you actually got called to a call that actually required a lot of physical work, then how could you recover your breathing so you can conserve your gas tank, but also how can you keep that calmness so you can critically think? Because for me, it's as important as the physical benefits of conditioning, but the more conditioned any person is, athlete, non-athlete, whatever, the more they're going to be able to stay present and critically think and make the right decisions. But if you've got so much lactic acid and you're huffing and puffing, you're climbing upstairs, it's going to be so hard to actually do the job that you need to do at that point and actually be a value-added contributor to the team. So whether it's because of just the critical thinking side of stuff, the mental side, or just your body's going to be way more able to handle whatever you're going to put in front of it, that's kind of the inspiration for a 30-minute thing that we're going to be running on the 18th at 12 p.m. Anybody would be more than welcome. It's free. And then right on the same day, we launch our fitness program as well.
Cool. And I'm sure you can provide me a link to that. We'll put it in the podcast description. We'll put it on Facebook, social media. Audience members can go ahead and jump on that. So
that would be huge. We would super appreciate that. Anybody, tell your crews, pass it to other stations, whoever, whether they're competitive stations or not. I'm just kidding. But pass the link. Again, the more people that benefit from it, it's free. It's 30 minutes. You'll learn tactics and strategies that you can use at any point. And it's the most valuable asset we have that is free, which is our breath. So you don't got to go to a gym. You got it anywhere. You can do it while you're on the rig. You could do it when you're back at the station. So use it, because our intention is to share it to help you guys.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. So I can give you the link now if you'd like, and then I'll also email you all this stuff.
Yeah, go ahead. Let everybody know.
So it's 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, because I know you're out in the East Coast, Kevin. And the link is firstinwellness.com/pages/challenge.
Okay. That's simple. That's easy.
Yeah. And I'll just really mention really quickly, we have a resilience program. We have one for departments, a group program. So if your whole department joins, or maybe it's just one crew or a handful of crews, that's our group program. And then we also have an individual version of that resilience program. So if an individual is really interested in supporting their health, but their department doesn't want to sign up, then they can sign up for that on their own. And that resilience program includes support on nutrition, sleep, or restorative sleep, I would say, and stress modulation. And then the group program includes the fitness program, and the individual program is you can add on the fitness program for a very deep discount.
Okay, great.
We also have a monthly newsletter that you can sign up for on our website. So if you just want, information, we send out a monthly newsletter on some little either new science that's come out or sleep tips or all different topics. And then you can also follow us on social media. And it's just First in Wellness. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So we have a little bit of a presence out there, but we're just trying to disseminate information that's going to help to support your health and wellness. And, like Mike said, and I want to echo it, is whatever you're doing to support it, we applaud you and we're there to cheer you on. So if it's just, maybe a post here and there helps you, or the newsletter or another fitness program or wellness program you're doing, then do it. Yeah.
Yep. I tell my audience members, all the time, it's like, don't keep that information to yourself, no matter what it is, firefighting, EMS, anything like that, share the information. I mean, we've got the technology today, whereas, decades ago we didn't. But, we've got social media, we've got, the internet, cell phones, you name it, podcasts, Zoom, all that stuff. Don't be afraid to share it out. Now, obviously if it's copyrighted stuff, stuff like that, but when it comes to, especially with health and wellness, again, we've talked about it here for the past hour. We're already up to, an hour. But at the end of the day, it's teamwork. We can all individually have our own little achievements, but when we come together as a team, I always say strength in numbers. We build on each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we come together, and it's, that camaraderie and, that encouragement, that really motivates, the morale. And that's what I've seen, throughout my military career and working with other organizations, is that when you start, team building, then the morale starts going up. We talked earlier, about how leadership may or may not be involved, but you're spot on. It's leaders come in all different forms and fashions. So it could be, somebody on a crew, it could be that brand new recruit that comes in and they're gung ho, they're motivated, and then they start encouraging others, even the old guys and girls, in the fire service to do something. Don't just sit back and in the day room watching, reruns of, who knows what. Get out there and do something, lift a little weight, and, if it takes, even just, razzing, if it's an older, the older veteran firefighters, razzing the young ones, getting them, talking smack in the firehouse, as they're lifting, their little weights, but, they're encouraging others. I mean, that's motivation. So, it's that in-house, that little bit of competitiveness, but at least have fun. That's the big thing I've always said, is have fun doing it. And I think you guys, your program, definitely can do that. So, again, I thank you guys for what you do, what you bring to the fight, and are sharing to everybody out there. So is there anything else you want to talk about?
Danielle, I think we covered it all. This has been such cool. I'm like blown away. It's like, I love when it goes by so fast, like just good conversation. So yeah, I'm good. Unless Danielle, you got something else to add. This has just been just a pleasure. So I just want to say thank you again.
Yeah, I would second that. Thanks so much, Kevin, for your time and having us on, and for what you do.
Well, again, you guys are welcome. I'm just thankful, I had the ability to do this and share the information out there. And, And like I said, I mean, it's a global reach. So, your messages, your efforts are not just, isolated here in the East Coast, West Coast, here in the US. I mean, they're reaching, all across the globe, Europe, Australia, Asia, you name it. I've got listeners out there. So, again, I think they can take, they'll be able to take at least something from this podcast and implement it. And I think that's really, I hope you can agree that, that's the end goal with this, is just take something away, and, build upon that. Whether, I was happy to hear that, you talk about newsletters. That's something, a lot of folks don't do. Just a simple newsletter, be like, you read something, be like, oh yeah, we could implement that, or it joggles their mind on something, and next thing you know, it's like the domino effect. Like I said before, we just keep building and building and building, and so that's, yeah. If you got nothing else, I just want to thank each of you for taking time out of your day to be on the podcast. Like I said, we're gonna get this thing put up here ASAP, because you've got a new release coming out here on the 18th. We definitely want to promote that for you guys. And so with that, folks, that's going to do it for another episode of the Weekend Wrap Up here at episode 21. So as always, our little catchphrase is stay safe, keep supporting your local fire emergency services. And until next time, folks, we're out of here.